If you've been doing ham radio for a while, you've probably needed to sell a piece of equipment at some point, and the easiest way to do it is usually with a dealer. But what you get offered can be often quite a disappointment. One of the largest amateur radio retailers in the UK is Martin Lynch, and in a moment he's going to share with us the inner secrets on how to get the very best deal for your second-hand equipment. But before we see the video, just a reminder that Martin is joining us live to take your questions, so please ask yours during or immediately afterwards using the YouTube chat, and please include your call sign if you've got one. But here's now Martin, G4HKS.
Hello, very good morning, good afternoon or good evening wherever you are watching this in the world, and welcome to the virtual RSGB convention 2020. Thank you very much for joining me. The title of this video is how to get the best out of your ham radio dealer come trade-in time. You may think that I want to keep all these little secrets to myself, but I thought I'd share them with you. But just a quick introduction to me if you don't know who I am. My name is Martin Lynch. I run Martin Lynch & Sons Limited in London, near London's Heathrow Airport, and I've had my own business for over 30 years now, and I'm very proud to say that my two sons run the business for me along with the rest of my team, including Tony, my sales manager, and the service guys, packing, dispatch, accounts, and everybody else. There's just done 19 of us now actually, so we've actually recruited a little bit more. So that's who I am. Been buying and selling amateur radio since the 70s when I joined Amateur Radio Exchange after leaving Rakel. Anyway, you've probably seen that, but that's who I am. So today I'm going to reveal to you tricks on how to extract the very last drop of money from that pesky ham radio dealer come trade-in time. I have been flogging the kit for over 40 years, so I've probably earned my stripes in all that time, not just buying it but selling it, because obviously they go both hand in hand. If I can't buy it, I can't sell it, and I'm quite happy to share with you how to get the best price when you turn up at your friendly local emporium, or indeed send it to them in these days in this COVID-ridden society that unfortunately we find ourselves in 2020, come part exchange time. It's no mystery, quite simply turning up at your favourite ham store, including the one in Staines of course, with a rig that looks like it's been stuck. Goodness me, it's got a bit windy out here, isn't it? Crikey, look at that. It looks like your rig looks like it's been stuck in the garden for the last 20 years. Won't do you any favours when it comes to getting the best value for your item. It's a bit like trading in a car. Yes, you can turn up with your old jalopy, having proudly boasted that you haven't washed it for the last 3-4 years, and yet your colleague who's got a similar car, who spent a bit of time cleaning it, funny enough, has got a much better price than you did. Wonder why? Well, it's the same principle with amateur radio kit. If you spend a little bit of time titivating it before you trade it in, you're definitely going to get more money. So this is the start of the journey on how you get the most from your dealer. And just remember, first impressions really are everything. So let's start at the beginning. You've been saving up for that new radio, missing the odd hot meal, going without that extra pint of beer at the weekend, and finally place the order. The anticipation, will it be as good as everyone tells you it is, and indeed the reviews, although the reviews in this country seem to come out months after the product is actually launched. So finally, the product arrives. You open the box carefully. Don't let it appear that the dogs help you to open it. All boxes are usually sealed with a single strip of tape, beautifully lined up, because it's either factory position, probably not in our game because it's a lot smaller quantities, but the lady in Japan or wherever it happens to be has been doing the same striping action with a tape gun for donkey's years. Get a knife and very carefully cut into the tape along the top and at the edges. Don't stab it, because you may well go straight through and scratch the top of your brand new radio. Don't forget to do the ends as well, and open the box. Pull the contents out piece by piece, and if you don't need the mains or DC leads that are usually bundled in the package of what you're buying, don't use them, because you've got loads anyway. Just leave them in the box, and there's a reason I'm saying this to you. Ditto the manual. Is it available online? Download it. You're probably going to look at it online anyway, and look at it on your monitor, on your tablet. Leave the manual in the box. Leave it in the plastic bag that's in the box. Ditto with the accessories. If you don't need the spare fuses and bits and pieces, leave the whole lot in there. There's no reason to take it out. The reason I'm saying this is trade-in time. So you just bought this radio, this is years after, it's come to trade it in. You haven't even used the bits. Look, the manual's still in the box. You can see where I'm getting to on this. So you've got the radio finally out of the box, and you're dying to rip the bag open. Don't. Carefully unpick the sellotape, get the radio out of the box, don't screw the plastic bag up, throw it back in the box, fold it rather, don't unfold it, it's already unfolded. Fold it and place it back in the box, and try and put all the bits that you've had a look at back in the box where they originally were placed. Because you can bet your life in 6 months, a year, 10, even 20 years, when you finally get that when you finally get the box out of the loft, you definitely won't remember where all the bits have gone. So do it as you unpack the radio. Stick it in the loft after you've taped the thing back up with just 2 bits of tape. Don't stripe it all back up with tape again. And wrap it, if you really want to, really anal, wrap it in a plastic bag and put a sticker on the outside of the box so you know what is inside this black plastic bag. Boxes do fade over the years, and they get full of dust and muck from your loft. It's not all sealed like mine. So cover it up. It all sounds a bit long-winded, I agree, and if you can't be bothered probably to even get this far, you'll probably stop watching this video presentation. But if you do, I guarantee you come trade-in time, if you've followed the simple steps that I've just already outlined, you'll thank me for sticking with it, because you'll set your trade-in ahead of everybody else. And also, with all the customers we've dealt with over the many years, when Joe rings up and says, oh, I've got a trade in, and my sales manager, one of the sales guys, said, oh, Joe's on the phone, oh, his gear's always mint, it always looks like he's barely used it. He's the chap that's followed these simple procedures. So it's the day of the trade-in. You've done all that, it's years later or months later, the evil trader is just waiting to pounce and grab your once pride and joy, and it doesn't matter if you've had it months or even years or decades, the same rule applies. You know where you put the box, it's sitting along all the other boxes that are in the loft or attic or whatever you call it in other countries that you've been collecting over time. If you've looked after the radio or accessory, same rule applies to accessories. A lot of accessories in amateur radio can be extremely expensive. Amplifiers spring to mind, they can be thousands of pounds. It's the same thing. Treat that and open the box and look after the packaging and the product throughout its when you first get the thing open. You'll probably spend a lot more time cleaning your car or letting the local jet wash boys valet, or girls, valet for you, but as of today I'm not aware of any valeters in your local town that valet amateur radio rigs, so now's the time to learn how to valet or clean your piece of amateur radio kit. When I joined Amateur Radio Exchange in the 70s, we had a foam cleanser called Amber Cleanse. That foam cleanser is still made today, except they've renamed it Servasol, which is a bit odd, but they've renamed it Servasol. From memory, it's still in a similar can. I actually did a video of it on how to use it on a radio that we had traded in. I think it was an FT847. And rather bizarrely, we've had over 2,000 views on our YouTube channel for that, showing you, because actually it's not that obvious, and if you do it wrong you can mess up the buttons, what's behind the buttons more importantly, you can scratch the product. It's very easy to apply, and it really does strip all the muck and grime off that you've naturally accumulated over the years that you've owned the radio. If you want to do it properly, get the radio on a piece of paper or some microfiber towels. Remove the knobs, trying to remember which order the knobs came off in. Get a container, a little plastic container, put the knobs in the container, squirt a load of Servasol, or amber cleanse it used to be called, in it, and just let it soak for 20 minutes, half an hour. Whilst you've got all the knobs off, spray the front panel with amber cleanse or any other clean you might have, but don't use Pledge. Again, over the many years, you'd be amazed how many people turn up and you get the radio out of the box, if indeed they've got the box, and you can smell Pledge or polish. First of all, you should never use polish and anything like that on your rigs, because if it does get behind the into the membranes and on the switches of your radio, you'll mess it up. Also, there's nothing worse than getting a piece of kit out of the box and it's all super shiny, because it didn't look like that when you bought it. Amber Cleanse leaves the product matte. So when you've wiped it down with a microfiber towel, like you would your car, I hope none of you are still using chamois, because that really is last century. God bless my dad with his chamois. A nice soft microfiber towel. Little plug, yes, we sell them with the amber cleanse on our website, just put foam in that, anyway. So nice and soft, wipe the cabinet down, spray it briefly and at a reasonable distance away. Don't go straight up to it, an inch away from the front panel. Just gloss over the front panel and it foams up very quickly. It all foams. Leave it for a minute or so, or even 30-40 seconds, and then gently wipe the front panel down, and be very careful if you're wiping the display down. Don't scrub the display. If you're a smoker, and of course there are smokers amongst us, I'm not one of them, fortunately. I managed to escape that vice. You will need to do this several times and leave it for 20-30 minutes, and you'll see all the grime go down to either the paper you put underneath or the towels, and keep doing it, and eventually it'll look a lot shinier. Another little tip, if you are a smoker, open the lids up and put some pot puree in little bags, Hessian bags. I know it sounds odd, but that actually gets rid of the smoke to an extent, because it does affect the trade-in value. So just thought I'd throw that in, but we do get rigs where when they've been turned on and heated up and we've missed it when it's come in, we've had to collect the radio from the customer and bring it back, because we didn't put initially that it was owned by a smoker. There it is. So time to put it all back. If the knobs are completely ingrained, especially the tuning knob, all the bits of skin and everything else really does get into the tuning knobs. I've got one of my chaps who works for us at the Staines store spends ages cleaning kit, really does. You don't need to go into that detail, but it's all about getting the best price. Get a toothbrush, preferably not the normal toothbrush you use, because believe me, it tastes disgusting afterwards, I should imagine, and scrub the grain and the grips of the various knobs. Dry them all off with a microfiber towel and place them back on the front panel when it's all dry. And when you've used amber cleanse, you'll notice it's a lovely matte shine, if it does indeed shine. It really makes a difference, and it honestly looks pretty well like new. Try not scratch the lids, of course. Don't place things on top of it where you're going to scratch product. You're just going to reduce the value. So same goes for actually handhelds and mobiles, same thing. Certainly if you've got a rig in the car, it's not going to be quite so easy not to mark it, but just try and look after it. When you've got to that stage, we're on to the next phase, and this is where it gets interesting. The next phase involves, say something else then, involves either ringing the dealer, emailing the dealer, or even turning up at the dealer, that's if we're not into yet another lockdown, and trying to negotiate a price. Now, you've seen the radio you want to buy, you've got a part exchange that's worth, say, a third of the value, roughly. Do be honest with the dealer and tell him if it's got any faults, because all dealers will test the radio. Not because they don't trust you but because you may not know it hasn't got this thing's dropping off the tree here. You haven't used that function. We often get tuners in transceivers, certainly the mechanical types or even the relay types and the later ones, where they never use the internal tuner. When we get the product sent in, we do give it a thorough test. Yes, we miss the odd bit, everybody does, but we do spend time testing it, and we find the tuner doesn't work. And genuinely, customers say, I never use the tuner, or they never use a 10 metre band or 17 metre band, and actually it doesn't even work. So if you know there's a fault, tell the dealer, because they'll immediately think, oh, that's decent, they've told us that. When it comes in, the report will go off, customer advises this doesn't work, or the power supply buzzes, whatever. You can try and hide it, but generally they will pick it out. And I have to say, I had a customer in the store a couple of years ago who had about 8 pieces of kit to part exchange. Every single piece of that was a can of worms. Initially I let one go, and as my engineers bringing one down one at a time was rather strange. He was in the store. I actually ended having indifferent words with him as he accused me of fictioning the actual value of the radio as well. I think I've traded long enough to know that I would never do that, and we parted company. It's very rare this happens, but it was obviously trying to pull a fast one. So generally we're not stupid, neither are the majority of my customers, and it's just not worth trying to fiddle a duff piece of kit through. You wouldn't want it done on eBay. You get it sent straight back and your money docked, so it won't happen with a dealer. So have a look around for the value. There's always a piece similar to yours that's being sold. Obviously the dealer's got to make a margin. Why? Because first of all, despite the fact that you paid 20% VAT when you purchased that towards the government, that the company who sold it to you has had to do, when you trade it back in again, VAT, an element of VAT has to be sent to the government again and again and again. A piece of kit can go in and out 20 times. Each time the government will get a portion of the VAT. Plus the fact he's got to warranty it again. So there is always a margin that the trader would have to make when you trade in. So don't be silly, don't think it's worth, it's worth roughly £500 to stick 20 quid on it, because that probably isn't going to happen. Try and be sensible and realise that a trader is in it for business, and he will need to make a reasonable margin without making a silly one. Ring the dealer up. The first thing any dealer will ask you is, how much do you want for it? The stock answer can be, I don't know. Well, you probably do know because you've looked into it, so do your homework. If he says 50 quid and you know it's worth 300, the dealer's trying to scam you. You can be upfront and say, look, this is what I want, and I don't want to pay any more than X to get into it. Maybe bid a little bit lower. And don't say any more, keep your trap shut. Don't talk all the way through it, and let the dealer think about what you're going to say. Or what you're offering, and see if it's a doable deal. He may go away and ask his sales manager, or on the odd occasion my sales manager will ring me up and say, what's this worth, usually on an old piece of kit, and I'll give my opinion, like, don't touch that, they're a nightmare. Or yes, we could do with one of those, that's a nice piece of kit, I might even have that myself. Let them do the talking if they're going to do the talking. Similarly, if you turn up at the store, if you've gone through the procedures of cleaning the product, as I've said, with the box, I can assure you the minute you turn up with that and the dealer starts unpacking it, thinks, wow, this guy's looked after it. It doesn't matter how much you've used it, first impressions really count. You can't be, if you haven't got time, you really can't be bothered. That's no problem. We're very happy to clean the kit. We've done it forever, and it's quite therapeutic actually, like me cleaning my car and my motorbikes. It is therapeutic, I love it. but it does actually go your way if you turn up with a good piece of kit, and try not to use accessories. Don't worry if you haven't got the same DC lead or mains lead. It isn't a problem. It just adds to the first impression. And certainly if you've bothered spending 10 minutes, half an hour cleaning it, it really will make a difference. So if you're in front of a dealer, they will always ask you how much do you want for it. If you think you know, say a price that's higher, slightly higher than you expect, and see what he says. But just stand there and say, this is what I'm hoping to get. This is what I've looked at what's being available and what's being sold on eBay and God knows what else, and give him an idea. He can always say no, and he can always go up, but generally that's how it works. There's no hidden agenda, but do tell him if there are any faults. Because usually they'll find out, certainly if they've got engineers on premises, which the majority of the dealers in this country and other countries have. So you've done the deal, you're happy, the dealer's happy, you've got your new toy, and it all starts again. You're going to take that radio home or accessory home. Just follow the simple procedures of undoing it and unboxing it if you want to. If you really don't care, I know when we all buy a piece of equipment, the majority of us think, I'm going to keep that forever. I can tell you now, with the amount of trade-ins we get, you almost certainly won't. I have got customers that are trading kit in that I sold to them literally in the 70s, 80s and 90s. And if it wasn't for amateur radio, it would be worthless. That's one thing I've always said about ham radio. At least it keeps its value, not as good as it used to many years ago, because the product's got a lot cheaper. And I often say what costs £550, £650 now for an FT450 100 watt HF with tuner, only £100 less bought you a handheld 30 years ago, not even that. That's how better value ham radio is in this country, thank goodness, because it used to be expensive. I'm not saying it's cheap now, but it's a lot better value. Needless to say, come resale time, everything's on a sliding scale, but the one you're trying to get into should have probably been £3,000. It's only £2,000 now, 1,500 or 1,000. So that's the cycle. Don't be intimidated by doing a deal. Generally, hopefully, dealers aren't trying to catch you. Certainly in my business, where it's all long term, my attitude has always been, you can only catch someone once, and you may get away with it, but when and if you don't, they'll tell everybody. And long before the internet came around, do you really want to touch somebody up that's on the radio broadcasting it? Unless you're a complete idiot, you won't do that. So long-term relationships are certainly far important to me as a pretty aged retailer these days. Is more important than grabbing the sale and, well, that's it, I don't care whether I see him or not. You can't keep everybody happy, but trade-ins are part of the fun, but just look after the kit. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to jump in my little car, I'm going to whiz off to Staines and see what trade-ins we've just recently taken in. We always take trade-ins, and just see how people have sent their item in, and just go through some of the points that I've raised in this video. Then after that, we're going to go live stream, and you can ask me questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability for the RSGB convention, virtual that is. So see you in a few minutes when I'm in my little motor. So here we are on our way to Staines upon Thames to the store, and I asked have we got any used pieces of kit that I can show the viewers how people send their trade-ins, and they chuckled. Well, Tony, my sales manager, chuckled, oh yeah, we've got a bit. So it took me a few minutes to get there. I only live about 10-15 minutes away from the store, which is great. Don't have to travel far, and you've got the delights of the traffic that I get each morning driving into work, but I really can't complain because some of my guys travel a long way. So getting back to trade-ins, it really is all about how you present your unwanted piece of kit. to the dealer, or indeed even to a private person. You know, if you're trying to sell it privately, will you get more money for it privately? Yes, of course you will. No question of that. Usually, anyway. In fact, I'd probably say most of the time. But on the same token, do you want what can be a lot of aggro? Sending it off, most people have to send their kit all over the place. It then arrives damaged because they haven't looked after it as well as you'd like them to look after it, or you didn't have the right packing material, or indeed you throw in the original boxes, not just the box but the actual packing material inside. So selling it privately can be fraught unless you're fortunate enough to be able to sell it to somebody at the club. And that's another source of possible sale. Ask your club members. No harm in doing so. But I'm cutting myself out of a deal here, but I'm being honest with you. And that really is the easiest, because you can take it along, show it to them, and take their money. We'll cut it now, I think, because I'm yet more traffic. The council seem to be having a field day during lockdown, doing all sorts of things in the roads around London. So we will call back in a few minutes from a little bit more of an interesting area in Staines to promote. So here we are coming up to Staines Bridge. Unfortunately, there's some traffic lights in place further around the corner. Which is why there's a bit of a delay. Normally at this time of day there isn't too much traffic going over the bridge, but you get used to it. Well, you don't actually, you never get used to it. Staines is on the river, in fact, because it's now renamed quite a few years ago Staines upon Thames. So we're not too far away from Heathrow Airport, which is why we get a lot of overseas visitors, and certainly the weekend of the RSGB convention most fly into Heathrow Airport, then get themselves up to the actual convention area. So we get a lot of people popping into our store on the way up and the way back. But we're about 4 miles, 3-4 miles away from Heathrow, so it's very easy to get to us. We've been at this location now for 5 years, almost 5 years, and enjoying it. It's a lovely site, and we've almost got it exactly how we want to get it. And I'm so looking forward to actually opening it up fully again, albeit it is open, but we can only get about 5 people in at the moment, customers that is, to try and maintain the social distancing. So, well, these traffic lights taking forever. I'll call back in when we're a little bit further around the corner, I think. So here we are, actually going over Staines Bridge. God knows how old it is. I should know, really, shouldn't I? But this is part of the sort of outer part of the high street, I suppose. Most of the stores, like they are in most areas now, are inside a shopping area, which is over to the left hand side. So if you are bringing your wives, girlfriends, husbands or partners along, they've got a very, very short walk to get from our works premises into the main high street, and there's God knows how many stores, I'm pleased to say, still open. A few of them have disappeared over the last 5-6 months of lockdown and partial lockdown. So there it is, which is a real shame. Hopefully this time next year, or even less, we'll be past this phase, but who knows. So excellent place to have your car washed, by the way, if you're coming to see us. Just over there on the right hand side rather, is a brilliant car wash. They do wash my car, as indeed several of the guys who work for me, and they work really hard. So you can see even information on local services in the Staines area. So there's a little side road that we're down. This used to be a bit of a trading estate road, but and they put these blooming humps along, but doesn't matter, you get used to them. The suspension never does. Can't imagine what the ambulances think of it when they're shaking people about the ambulances. But most of the trading estate roads have gone now, and they've been turned into residential as indeed the corner of the road that we're located in has done the same. The guy has decided to sell up and build a block of flats on the corner, which is why that is all boarded up. So coming into Martin Lynch and Sons, I've been here for a couple of days actually, so we'll cut the video off now and I'll see you inside. Here we are at the OK Corral, as I call it. It's a beautiful day here in London, as you can see, and let's wander in and see what's happening. This is our packing dispatch department. Got two guys here now that are full-time packing and wrapping, and there's my young son Henry standing by with his camera. And what we've got is a piece of kit that's been traded in, an ICOM IC 910H, and as you can see, our workshop have made a few notes on it, on frequencies and power output and sensitivity, preamp OK, attenuate OK, and one of the points they've made is cabinet marks on top cover, which you can see looks like the customer's had something sitting on top of it, and there are certain screws that are slightly chewed, which they've replaced, I'm pleased to see. Yes, he did keep the box, and if we look, there's the manual, which he's obviously used it, but at least it's in the original bag, so that whoever owned this prior to us taking it as a trade-in has looked after it. Here's the accessories. The microphone is in reasonable condition, except that's been bent outwards. None of this has been cleaned by any of our guys. Jonathan's sitting there. There he is. You probably don't recognise Jonathan with a mask on, but because we've got customers floating in and out, he's wearing a mask. And that's the DC cable, which has obviously been used. So at least the items are there. The little pack, the fuses and things, doesn't appear to be. That's an example of a plastic bag being screwed up and just chucked in. Wouldn't that have looked nicer if it was folded up? Does it matter? First impressions. So looking at the 910, as you can see, the front panel really is, yeah, well, that definitely needs a clean, as you can see, Jonathan. Yeah. So the knobs aren't too bad, but this tuning knob is pretty filthy and ingrained. So we'll whip these knobs off, clean them up. I mean, whoever's traded this in hasn't cleaned it at all. Now, the cleaning fluid that I mentioned is good old Ambersol. There it is. And this isn't an advert for Servosol foam cleanser, I can assure you. But literally, I've been flogging this stuff for 40 years. Can you just pass me that microfiber towel over? And for those of you who wonder what a microfiber towel looks like, that is one. There it is. And when you use these to clean it, don't screw it up into a ball and do this. Keep it nice and loose and open. And I'm not going to clean this properly because we'll be here for ages, but quick spray, let it sit for 15, 20, 30 seconds, depending on how filthy it is. And this cabinet doesn't look that bad. And then just lightly wipe. Now, as my engineers said upstairs, there are marks to the front panel. And most Japanese products, which you can still see, and most Japanese products have got this plasticized effect on it rather than just paint. And I can clean this till the cows come home, but those marks won't come out. So when we do photographs of it, they will appear, and we probably even mention it in the description. But at least it's clean. And Solvol, as I said earlier, leaves a matte finish rather than a super glossy one. Please don't spray your products with Pledge, Jonathan. We do have people sending gear with Pledge, which can't be good for the product at all. So these knobs will come off. We'll spray the front panel. The knobs will probably be soaked and reassembled to look a lot better. What will never be able to change are the marks on the top. Bottom's all good too. So generally that is in good condition, very good condition, bar the unfortunate marks on the top. So we get through masses of used equipment. You can see it's stacking up there behind us. These have all been tested by the workshop. I can actually see an FT227RB, my godfathers, with the step mod that's been done, probably by Amateur Radio Exchange, because we used to do those to give us the 5 kilohertz steps, as they came in with 20 kilohertz, and in those days we didn't have 12.5s, but we tuned in 25 kc steps, so we used to mod them. But there's always used products coming in. And look at that, that's a bit of an oldie, isn't it? FP707, good lord. I think I mentioned this the other day. Oh, hello, it's got Anderson power poles on it, crikey. So 7100s, flexes, none of these have been cleaned yet, so they've all got, we have upgraded to version 3 and the ATU's fitted. So these are notes from the workshop upstairs. Got the label on it, and that's got to be cleaned and then labelled up by sales before it goes on show, and then it's uploaded to the website. Anyway, enough of that. There's another, what's that, 7300? Yes, 7300. This is yet to be cleaned, but again, the customer's looked after it. It's probably not that old. Well, again, the tuning knob's a bit of a mess. To be honest with you, if it arrived in that condition, we wouldn't criticise it too heavily at all, because there's no marks or scratches on it, and everything else can be cleaned by Solvol Auto Sol. So that's it really. Just remember, when you negotiate with your dealer, do a little bit of research and homework first. Let me just get Tony, my sales manager, and this is our sales office. Tony, just talking about trade-ins. So when a customer rings you up for a trade-in, what's the typical questions they ask, and how would you respond to them?
On the spot.
On the spot, yes.
Okay, typical questions. How can I ship the item to you?
Yeah.
So normally, great if the customer can send it in to us.
Yeah.
Obviously really well packaged, etc. We can arrange collections at about 15, 16 pounds per parcel.
What about the nitty gritty though? What, you know, he doesn't know what it's worth. Would you suggest to the customer that you should go and do a bit of research and see what they sell for example?
Yeah, ideally most customers have a rough idea of what they want for it. Obviously, when we give a price, bear in mind the fact we're putting a warranty on the item.
And the VAT difference.
The VAT
I know,
difference,
yeah, I've been through that.
So we always do say customers, yes, you can get more if you go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
privately. I know you don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But as you know, if you're dealing with second-hand sales on eBay, ham radio deals, etc.,
yeah, of course,
you get the trouble that comes with it.
Yeah.
So at least with us, yes, we might be £50 less money. It's paid for and it's done.
Yeah,
so,
and the deal's done. And also, you know that when it arrives here, we're going to look after it in the event that they may want it back, which generally very rarely happens, and they're going to get paid quickly.
Yeah, it's just done. I mean, obviously at the moment there's slightly days with the COVID. You're still within a week, and it's 10 days you're paying.
I mean, one of the things I mentioned, and that's our workshop manager and training Presario, that's Steve in the workshop. There's a lot of us here, as you can see. So one of the questions that people ask, and this is myth, I think, is you'll always get a better deal out of the dealer if you don't trade in. Would you say that's true?
No, we aim to give the same price, whether it's a straight outright sell or a trade-in.
Yeah, I mean, my thought on it is often we want the trade-in, so we'll encourage a person to trade it in, and we'll certainly if it's a piece that's wanted out in the marketplace, we will pay more for it.
The 450s have gone up in price.
Of course,
End of line.
FT450. Yeah, everybody wants them.
£50 to £75 more than what we were a month ago or so.
Yeah. Okay, good. Very good. Hello, Mark. All right. Right. Well, we've got some new faces here, so the recruitment worked very well. That's it, really. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me just take this head cam off and use it like this. Been fun talking to you. I do hope that next year we're back at the RSGB convention for real, rather than all this virtual stuff. But wherever you are in the world, be safe and look after yourself. I think we're just going to go over to some live questions now. So let's go to the live stream and far away and I'll see if I can answer the questions for you. All the best to you.
And as Martin said, so much better than me, really. We're now on live questions. So I hope you enjoyed that film. And Martin Lynch is joining us live. If you've got any questions for him or any comments, please put them in the YouTube chat right now. But now it's a great pleasure to welcome Martin G4HKS. Hello, Martin.
Very, very good afternoon to you, or wherever any of you are watching in the world, all 320 of you. But very nice to see you, David, and 10 out of 10 to everybody that's gone before me in the lectures and still going on, and indeed the ones that are going to go afterwards.
So I guess you're missing this the real convention, as you're very much, your company and you are often there, aren't you? Every year, I think, for some years.
We've sponsored it almost from the start. In the very early days, and it was the RSGB, when it was the HF convention. I was approached in about 94, I think it was 93, 94, and said, look, would you like to sponsor us? And that's when it started. And I've been sponsoring the show ever since. So, long time.
Well, thank you for that as well. Now, we've got some relevant questions to your business, but the first question I think I would like to ask you is from Rod VA3ON, and he actually asks, how is the camera panning around in the car with your car shot? So can you let some daylight into that?
I did read that as well. It's post-editing, so maybe people got slightly confused and thought, how on earth is he doing all this when he's actually driving in live? It wasn't. It was pre-recorded, of course, because I couldn't have got as much in as we did. So my youngest son is very clever. That's what he trained in, and it's all post-edit. So it looks like the camera's moving and panning in. It isn't at all.
Oh, that is clever stuff, yeah. I thought it might be on one of those gimbal things, but...
No.
Anyway, the first real question for you comes from Essex Hams. Probably from Pete, M0PSX. For those new to the hobby, new or used?
It really depends what you want to buy. I think if you're new to the hobby and you're not used to purchasing the right piece of kit, or you're worried about reliability, maybe new, because at least you then have got complete peace of mind. You've got at least 1, 2 or 3 year warranty. But it really depends how your budget is. I mean, it's the same with buying anything. You know, if everybody only ever bought new cars, there wouldn't be a used car market. So it's never put me off. When I was very much younger, I couldn't afford new kit. I always used to buy used. So don't be put off by it. It's really what, and also join your local club and they'll give you advice. So neither one or the other, to be honest.
Same questioner Essex Ham said, things to watch out for with used. So if someone is buying something used, whether it's from you, I guess, or whether it's from a mate at the club, what should they look out for generally?
Well, generally, as I mentioned in the video, it really depends. Again, I always compare things with cars. If you go along and see a used piece of equipment, so you actually go out and have a look, how's it been looked after? Is it scratched, marked? Has the chap or lady you're trying to buy it from bothered to clean it? Although you can see past that. Are there a smoker? Of course, there's lots of smokers amongst us in the hobbies. There is everywhere. That can actually be can have a detrimental effect. Heavy smoking on the equipment. So bear that in mind. Why it gets into relays and contaminates boards.
So it's not just the smell then, Martin. It can have a real effect on the operation of the transceiver or receiver.
In fact, absolutely. Only 2 or 3 days ago, one of my 5 engineers said to me, we had a problem so-and-so, and we've tried to sort this particular item out, but the gentleman admits it's such a heavy smoker. And it is actually difficult for us to warranty a repair. It's a bit like flood damage. We might be able to get a piece of equipment repaired after flood damage. Generally, we won't, because you can never guarantee how long that product's going to last for. But getting back to it, if you're looking at a used piece of equipment, either in a ham radio store, and I'm pleased to say there's still a good percentage of us left in the country, or privately, or at your local club, just look at the general condition. Have a look at it physically and see, has it been looked after? One of the questions was, have they keep the manuals? That's actually a very, very good point. Have they got the manual? You can always get it online generally, but just general condition.
But it adds a bit of value to it and makes it more desirable than maybe the one next door.
that hasn't got a manual or the box,
Yeah.
all the packaging and everything else.
Yes. Kevin G0PK says, we haven't seen you at radio rallies in recent years. How useful are radio rallies for getting good deals on kit?
Well, getting good deals, yes. At our peak, we were doing 27 rallies a year. So work that out, it's almost one every other week. And they were very, very hard work. Were they rewarding? Yes. Financially, of course, but meeting lots of customers, meeting new customers, old customers. The rallies, unfortunately, started disappearing many years ago because the internet took over web purchasing. But many Saturday Sundays, getting up at 4 in the morning, load the van up, etc. Anyway, getting back to the main point, they are good for doing deals. Generally, the dealer will want to sell the product rather than take it home. Another little tip, and it does happen, wait to the end. Wait 10, 15 minutes before the end.
Really?
And yeah, I think it's quite amusing. I mean, I love people doing it. Please don't all turn up at Newark next year. Hopefully, I'm sure Newark will be.
They'll be there at 5 to 4 on Sunday
and I'll be there at 5 to 4 on Sunday, and you'll be saying, you said in your video last year. But yes, of course. I mean, why not? You know, I've got it there. Do I want to sell it? I mean, I can take it back, because I'm still going to sell it, taking it back to the store. And I do say this to people. So be sensible. If something's 500 quid and you go and offer 300, you're not going to get it. Just be sensible.
You better start one of those queue things next year. If we're
I know, I can see that. I'm already looking at the queues now. No, I agree. Buying at rallies can be very good. They are mini flash sales, really. Do support the rallies. You know, if you have got a local rally, somebody's gone to a lot of bother to getting it off the ground, and there may be a financial implication as well. So don't turn your back on rallies. At the moment, of course, that's pretty well a non-event, isn't it?
Yes.
It's why we're doing this rather than being at convention.
That's right. Pete M0PSX asks, how much of an impact has the new influx of M7s had on the market, and what are newcomers going for, new or used? And has COVID changed the new and used market very much?
Well, initially when and let's do it backwards. Initially, when COVID came in, the used for us stopped completely because people weren't coming to the store. Generally, with trade-ins, people bring it in, or they get us to remote collect it. Obviously, we were very wary. You know, the whole idea of lockdown is you don't run around the place and see people and everything else. So did we want to remote collect customers' equipment and bring it in? Well, to be honest with you, no, we didn't. As we've worked through 7 months afterwards, and whilst things are getting worse in the UK, we have opened the doors. We are getting second-hand kit in, but certainly for months, it was, you look at our second-hand listing on our website, as indeed other dealers, we're all in the same boat. So it did affect it. Sorry, you did ask 2 other questions, but just remind me of those 2.
There was a 3-part question that he asked. Has COVID changed the new market much? What were newcomers going for, new or used more?
Okay, again, a bit of both. We sell a lot more new than we do used. If I go back 25, 30 years, it was the other way around. We sell a lot more new, but every time we sell new, eventually that will turn into a used piece and it's traded in. But the new license holders, I think if Tony was with me, my sales manager, he'd say the same thing. They usually buy new because they want the new box radio, that they are worried about someone else fiddling with it. In the old days, radio amateurs were great twiddlers, as indeed I was. We get it very rarely now. First of all, there's far less to fiddle and twiddle with if you open up a modern radio. So you can't start messing around, turning power up and doing everything else. But yeah, I think in answer to your question, it's new is the bulk of the purchase to new license.
All M7s. I think in the peak, I mean, they've been doing 600 a month new M7s with remote invigilated exams. Incredible. And it's wonderful because any hobby is going to depend on the future new blood, isn't it, for its long term?
Yes. 15 years ago, when I was still in Ealing, and we opened up our motorcycle store because amateur radio was doing this, and the RSGB said to me, "You do realise 98% downturn in people taking their RAE, radio amateur exam, I thought, crikey, if we're not careful, the hobby's going to disappear. So a lot of older radio amateurs, I'm certainly one of them now, or M3s and M6s and the foundation licenses. It's not that difficult to get it. Well, with respect, without that influx, we probably wouldn't have a hobby. So you've got to celebrate them coming into the hobby, because it is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, why does it still survive? People still, I see people everywhere. So what amateur is that? God, why do you need that? Oh,
great indoor hobby as well, of course, in these COVID times.
Especially at the moment, even more so. Yeah.
Absolutely. Bob, GW6RBZ, says, if I did a trade-in for something that was less than the value of the radio, could I do a straight swap or perhaps a bit of credit added?
We do get customers often over the years who trade something in that's worth more than the product they're buying. Generally, we'll transfer the funds back to the customer. Others say keep it in credit, and then when I want something else, especially if they've driven 100, 200 miles to get to the store, which really does happen, it's easy they can then ring up or email us and say, can I have so-and-so, and can send it. Often we get equipment in which is worth more than the product they're going out with. So just because it's upside down, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Will either
Kevin,
literally.
beg your pardon. Kevin, G8VJU, says, what's Martin's main station and how often does he operate these days?
Right. Okay. When I was younger, I used to be 24/7 in amateur radio. I was so involved in amateur radio, it was unbelievable, much to the exclusion of doing other things I should have been doing, like studying, including my report saying if Martin stopped flogging stuff to his friends in the playground, he may do a lot better, which I thought was quite amusing, considering I ended up buying and selling equipment. I think we spoke about this on your excellent Norwich.
That was orange and lemonade, wasn't it, in the bath?
I said, yes, in my mother's bath.
We shouldn't diversify too much.
It was bright orange for months, but that's
I'll never forget that story, okay. Martin.
Yeah, no, neither will I. And it's the truth. It really was. My mum was still here. She'd tell it to you.
So that was how Martin started in business, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, selling orangeade, PLJ juice. Very well done. PLJ juice, Panahi juice, whatever his name was. Okay. No, I don't get on very often. Because I'm still involved with business, albeit semi-retired now, which is another reason why you don't see me at every rally. When I go on, I'm very pleased to say I've got lots of customers, and usually it's a bit of a bum fight for Martin. I've got so-and-so, I'd like to trade this in for so-and-so and all this sort of thing, which obviously I'm not going to, I'm not meant to discuss. I'm hardly going to say, no, I can't do this, which I try and defer it. I think when I'm more out of the hobby, you probably won't get me off the radio. I've got a reasonable sized garden here, and I can certainly put up some larger antennas than the ones I've got. What have I got at home? Yaesu FT450, which is fantastic. A complete row of IC202s, 402s and 502s, as you know. IC7610 and an FTDX 9000, which I've had for years, the MP 400 watt version. So that's my main station. You'll catch me on top band when I do go on, and 2 meters, in fact. Well, and those are always the 2 bands that kept me in the hobby. I only got my G4 to get on 160 meters.
Well, we'll listen out for that call. We haven't got much time left, Martin, but just a couple more for you. Anthony, G4CUS, says, I've been an M&L customer since his first shop before the & S was added. Good to see him still going strong, though we're both a little older now, he says. And Steve Gill, who's MM0SGQ, says, why is it that when you check out prices at different dealers, prices seem to be all the same and dealers tend to be very firm on price? The market's not very competitive, so does it come down to service, he asks?
Well, thank you very much for adding that last bit, because yes, it really does. I had a customer email me yesterday and said, how come all of you are $399.95 on an FTM 300? There you go. That was literally yesterday. And I emailed back and gave my reasons why, including hungry mouths to feed and not having a hot meal for 3 months. But in summary, yes, it does. Yes, it does come down to service. Of course it does. I mean, it would be useless if it was just me as the only dealer in the UK. Because, I bet no, you don't mean that, Master. But it is, because you need choice. You know, if I get somebody ringing up from the Birmingham area or Yorkshire area trying to do a deal with me, it does beg the question, why don't you try and support your local dealer?
Yeah.
And you should do. There may be reasons why you don't. And if that's fine. That's what competition and service is all about. But I really do believe that service is one of the mainstays of why we've survived so well in 30 years of trade.
Thank you.
Look after your customers.
We haven't got much time at all now, Martin, but I do want to ask one particular question from Essex Hams. We know they do a great job at training in these COVID times in particular. They've got a common question they're asked from newcomers. There are a lot of Chinese cheapo radios coming onto the market, presumably minimal trade-in value. Any thoughts on budget rig versus a no-name?
Every manufacturer's got a place in the market, but obviously if you buy something at a very low cost, don't expect to get much back for it. So try and buy the best you can afford without going over the top.
Okay.
And there are some bad brands, but you'll find we don't stock. That really probably answers that.
Fine.
question.
Very quick on Kevin G6ZDP. Martin, can I enter the store as I cannot wear a mask due to a health problem?
Yes, you can, but as long as you make that clear and we welcome you in. All my guys wear masks in the store now. We didn't originally, but now we do. And please just make that evident when you come to the store, obviously.
All right. And one just found a little fact from your film. Stainsbridge was opened in 1832, apparently, Chris says.
Fantastic. I should have I've noticed that more. Thank you very much.
All right. Martin, thank you ever so much for joining us from your looks like a very sunny, beautiful garden. We're stuck here in a little studio for the rest of the day. But thank you ever so much for joining us and for giving us all great tips on how to get the most for a part exchange from your dealer. Martin Lynch, thank you very much.
You're very welcome and very best of luck to everybody, and please keep safe and thank you for your support and have a great day watching everybody live on the RSGB Convention 2020. See you next year, hopefully.
Hope so. Thank you very much, Martin.